B. Lopez.
Thank you very much for that very comprehensive presentation. Anyway, those are a thing of the past, which is not very important now. What is important is I need to prove, just like a defendant in a certain case, I need to prove beyond reasonable doubt the information that were read before you. And I hope I can prove the same with the quantum of evidence necessary for the conviction of an accused. All right, good morning to everyone. It's almost 9 o'clock, I suppose, and we were supposed to start at 8:30. Of course, I will not excuse myself because of the traffic. As usual, that is the common alibi of most people who have an appointment. But before I start, let me just tell you something about a person caught in the traffic. As usual, many people, just to avoid traffic, violate these traffic rules. And there was one who was caught violating this traffic, and he was apprehended by the policeman. And as usual, what does the violator do? Ano? Oh, you know that. Oh, yun na, ganun na siya. The person apprehended attempted to bribe the policeman, di ba? As usual. And the offender told the policeman, "Mr. Policeman, I will give you this day your daily bread. But forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." The policeman meekly smiled and he said, "Do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from evil." With those prayers, there was no bribe. You see, I know all of you, every one of us here knows how to pray, and we are already doing a lot of prayers to ease up our sufferings and tensions and pressure in taking up the bar exams. But mind you, class, after the bar exam, especially when you are already waiting for the result, the more prayers you will do. All right, let me start. Of course, I know you already have this syllabus for the 2013 bar examination. It is the same syllabus which was used since 2011, 2012, and this is the third year that this syllabus has been used. Although it is not always followed, it is not always, there are still matters which are given not contained in the syllabus. But nonetheless, we will still assume that this is the correct syllabus because there was already a promise coming from the chairman of the bar exams that this will be strictly followed in the preparation of the questions of your bar exam. So I will limit myself with the syllabus plus, of course, related areas involving the subjects under this syllabus. And if you will notice, the first thing that we should take into account is the fundamental principles. fundamental principles. We still need to define what a criminal law is. Although everyone already knows what is a criminal law. But how or why do we need to know the definition of a criminal law? Bakit natin kailangan? Alright. For purposes of statutory construction. For purposes of statutory construction and the application of your constitutional limitations. As you will note, a criminal law must be strictly construed against the government and in favor of the accused, plus the constitutional restrictions like ex post facto law, bill of attainder, etc., are strictly applicable to criminal laws, but does not necessarily apply to procedural laws or other kind of statutes. Okay? For instance, this matter of ex post facto law regarding the retroactivity of a penal statute. See? Retroactivity of a penal statute. This would strictly apply as a matter of right when it involves a penal statute. But other kinds of statute, it is not mandatory, it is not strictly applied. Take, for instance, the matter of suspension pendente lite. You know what is a suspension pendente lite? It is a preventive measure under Article 24 of your revised penal code. Now, in one case, class, the accused who was meted with this kind of suspension because he was charged under Republic Act 3014 said that this will not apply to him because at the time the crime was committed, there was no suspension pendente lite yet. And secondly, this partake the nature of a bill of attainder because he is already being penalized even without trial, as he will be suspended pendente lite. And suspension is a penalty. He could not be penalized without due process and hearing. The Supreme Court said, this suspension pendente lite is not a penal statute. It is a preventive measures, and therefore your principles of ex post facto law, strict interpretation, as well as the bill of attainder is not or are not applicable, you see. In the same way as your circular BP 22, remember what is the penalty? BP 22 under the Supreme Court circular. Ano ang penalty? Sabi ng Supreme Court, preferably, you impose a penalty of a fine and not an imprisonment. And the Supreme Court clarified that this circular did not abolish or delete the penalty of imprisonment, but merely a preferential penalty. Okay. There was a person charged and convicted of BP 22. He was incarcerated and meted a penalty of this matter of imprisonment. And after, while pending his imprisonment, this circular was issued by the Supreme Court, providing a preferential penalty of fine. So, the accused now filed a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, seeking for his release, and that he should only be fined. In other words, he wants the circular to retroact in order that he could be benefited by this preferential penalty. One of the reasons why the Supreme Court denied the petition is that this circular is not a penal statute. So that even if it is favorable to the accused, pursuant to Article 22, retroactivity of a penal statute, it will not, as a matter of right, retroact for the benefit of the accused, precisely because this is not a substantive penal statute. It is merely a circular or a resolution, similar to a resolution of the Supreme Court, directed the imposition of a fine as a preferential penalty. Okay? Alright. So, we will define what a criminal law is. And as you will note from the definition, a criminal law is a substantive public law that defines what a crime is and prescribe the penalty. From that definition, class, you will note the elements arising from the definition of a criminal law. The nature of a penal statute, and which consists of three basic elements: substantive, public, and imposes a penalty. Why substantive? Okay. You will note the distinction between a substantive and an adjective law. Di ba? Ang substantive is a law that provides or grants a right. What right is granted by a penal statute or a criminal law? Ano bang right? Alright. It is the right of the state to prosecute a wrongful doer, an offender, a criminal offender. That is a right for the state to protect itself. Kaya nga yung mga purposes ng criminal law, nandoon. What are the purposes of a penalty? Nandoon. Those are the rights of the state against an offender. As opposed to an adjective law, ano ang adjective law? It is a remedial law. And you know what a remedial law is. If there is a substantive law, there must be a corresponding law that will enforce the substantive law. Otherwise, that substantive law granting a right will be useless without the procedural aspect. And that is why we have the criminal procedure. And from time to time also, we cannot avoid discussing criminal procedure related to a criminal law as a substantive law. Alright. Secondly, public in character. You know what is a public law? It governs the relationship between the state and the people. Your constitution is the basic and common public law, which you know, because it governs the right of the state vis-a-vis the right of the persons or citizens. In like manner, in criminal law, it governs the government and that of the people. Hence, if you will notice, all criminal cases are captioned people of the Philippines versus Juan de la Cruz. Precisely because it is the government which is the offended party. It is not actually the private offended party who is the proper party in interest. And finally, the most important element of a criminal statute or a penal statute, from the word itself, penal in character, the imposition of a penalty. That is the primordial element of a penal statute. Bakit? The reason is embodied in your Article 21 of your revised penal code. And that Article 21 reflects the maxim nullum crimen nulla poena sine lege. There is no felony unless there is a penalty prescribed prior to its commission. That exactly is Article 21. Alright, very good. So that for purposes of the penalties, these are the basic element that is restricted by your constitution. And what are these restrictions? Restrictions under your constitution regarding the imposition of penalties. Of course, the most important restriction is that no cruel and unusual penalty. Cruel and unusual penalty or excessive fine shall be imposed. That is the basic limitation. Now, if a statute provides a penalty of 10 years imprisonment for a simple theft, can that penalty be questioned? If the law provides a penalty of 20 years imprisonment for a crime involving acts of lasciviousness, would that kind of penalty be stricken off because it is cruel and unusual? Basically, class, this severity of a penalty is a matter of wisdom. It is political in nature that cannot be questioned. This is the discretion of the legislature to impose a penalty dependent upon their wisdom, whether this penalty commensurate with a particular crime. What is prohibited is when they are cruel and unusual. Of course, you know when is it cruel and unusual. For instance, if one of you who committed a crime against chastity and the government will impose a penalty of castration, will that be constitutionally valid? Of course, you will tell me, I would rather die than to be castrated. Kita mo? That is cruel and unusual. Death penalty is not cruel and unusual. It was already sustained by the Supreme Court. However, if the manner how the death penalty is to be executed would appear to be cruel and unusual, then that will be subject to invalidity. As for instance, nowadays, it is already taboo for beheading a person, or let the person be burned to death. This cannot be allowed anymore because this is a cruel and unusual punishment. But take note, class, that at present, the death penalty has been, do not say abolished. That is the worst answer that you can give me. It was not abolished because it is only the Constitution which can abolish death penalty. It cannot be done through a statutory provision. Remember, the Constitution allows the imposition of death penalty in heinous crimes, dependent upon the statute that will be imposed to make the to apply the death penalty. Alright, 9346 prohibits the imposition of death penalty. It was not abolished. Alright. Note, if it is already prohibited, does the court needs to know or needs to clarify in its decision that death penalty is the imposable penalty, and therefore the penalty next lower to it, which is reclusion perpetua, either reclusion perpetua or life imprisonment, should be imposed. Does the court need to clarify and state in the decision? In other words, if you are a prosecutor, will you still file an information that will materially allege the special qualifying aggravating circumstances to bring out a conviction of a crime, the penalty of which is death? The answer is yes. Yes. Why? Because if death penalty is imposable, later on I will explain to you why I emphasize the word imposable from the word prescribe and from the penalty impose. Siguro at this early I will tell you now, para in the course of our study medyo ma-distinguish ninyo ang meaning ng penalty prescribed, penalty imposable, and penalty imposed. Sir, pare-pareho naman yan sinasabi nyo. Meron bang mali if I told my friend the penalty imposed for murder is reclusion perpetua to death? Meron bang pagkakaiba yan if I will tell my friend the penalty prescribed for murder is reclusion perpetua to death? The penalty imposable for murder is reclusion perpetua to death. Meron bang kaibahan yan? Alright. Apparently, they sound the same. They mean the same under normal circumstances. Ibig nyo sabihin, under abnormal circumstances, when lawyers are talking, we are not talking normally. For purposes of precision, for purposes of precision class, and for purposes of proper interpretation. Prescribed is the penalty which is provided in the law. Yan yung nandyan na nakasulat. Penalty imposable is the penalty which is determined after applying the modifying circumstances. For instance, after determining that there is a mitigating circumstance which is privilege or ordinary and or aggravating circumstances, we arrive at that particular penalty, then that is the imposable penalty. And finally, the penalty imposed is the penalty which is found in the judgment. Technically, that is the distinction of penalty prescribed, imposable, and imposed. Hence, we go back to death penalty. The court, despite the penalty of death being prohibited, must determine if it is the penalty imposable. So that if death penalty is imposable, after considering the circumstances, the penalty that will be imposed will now be reclusion perpetua. Tama? Oy, to be exact, reclusion perpetua without the benefit of parole. Life imprisonment without the benefit of parole. If you will see that penalty class, that means death penalty is imposable. Besides, as to the civil liability, the award will still remain, meaning that the civil liability attached to death penalty will still be imposed by the court. Okay? Cruel and unusual. Let me just mention some constitutional limitation as stated in your handouts. Oh, no. Syllabus. Equal protection, due process, non-imposition. Tapos na tayo. Alright. Death penalty, tapos na rin tayo. Alright. Bail of attainder, binanggit na natin. Ex post facto, nasabi na rin natin. But let me just mention about equal protection clause. This equal protection clause is related to one of the characteristics of a criminal law. What is that characteristics? Which is related to general, to this matter of equal protection. What is that characteristic? Ano ba ang characteristic ng penal statute? Or characteristics of Philippine criminal law? Right. Generality, territoriality, and prospectivity. Siguro naman alam natin lahat yan. And speaking of generality, that is really the principle of equal protection, because the law should apply to everyone. Generality. Regardless of your religion, regardless of your nationality, regardless of your color, regardless of your whatever is that regardless. Nakita mo nga dyan, minsan dyan sa, wala na yata, tinanggal na yata The law applies to all, otherwise none at all. Nakita nyo yun? The law applies to all. Kaya lang, nung nanalo si Erat, nawala na. Nawala na. That is the equal protection clause. But remember, class, that this equal protection clause is subject to classification. But such classification should be a valid classification germane to the purpose of the law. Remember People versus Kayat. Yung mga certain tribes in the mountain province were prohibited from drinking liquor because of their violent characteristic. Once they become drunk, they were prohibited. And one of those charges challenged the validity of that law because it is against the Equal Protection Clause. And the Supreme Court said there is a valid classification because these people does not know how to handle themselves once they get drunk. Okay? Then you have this recently, the case of Paideia yung against Paideia, social justice versus PDEA. Never mind what is that, whatever is that title. But the issue here, class, is the matter of drug testing involving students. Mandatory drug testing involving students of the secondary and tertiary schools. And there were some groups who challenged the validity of this law based upon Equal Protection Clause, because why subject the students? They could be, this test could be subject to use for purposes of harassment. So they want to invalidate this drug testing against students. And the Supreme Court said, no, this is a valid legislation. Because students, short of saying that there is also a classification in the sense that students does not have the absolute right to enter a school. This school has the right to pass a regulation or to maintain a drug-free community or institution. So long as that implementing rule would be reasonable in character, it would not violate the Equal Protection Clause. And true enough, so long as the drug testing is random and suspicionless, that will not violate the right of privacy of the students as well as the Equal Protection Clause. Okay. On matters of due process, maybe you know what is due process, but maybe what I'm saying is the void for vagueness rule would still be important to take note. Ano ba itong void for vagueness rule? This is rooted from due process clause. If a penal statute is vague, it is not clear, so that we, people of the Philippines, could not determine, could not be clarified what constitute a crime, more so with the police officers, who will not be able to determine the implementation of the law because it is vague, it is not precise. May the law be assailed because it is violative of your due process clause. Pwede? The answer is yes. Because this is a due process. However, we can only assail the validity of that law based on this void for vagueness rule in relation to your due process clause when there is already a case filed against you, when you are already prejudiced, not when there is no crime yet that is charged against a person, meaning that the law cannot be challenged on its face. Yan yung tinatawag na facial validity, which is only applicable to your right of expression guaranteed by the Constitution. On its face, a law can be challenged or assailed if it involves a restriction of your right to expression, which is guaranteed by the Constitution. But the enactment of a penal statute has a characteristic which the Supreme Court said, quote-unquote, ad terrorem. Ano yung ibig sabihin ng ad terrorem? That will terrorize or restrict your freedom. You cannot simply assail that on its face and secure a declaratory relief. No, you cannot do that. For purposes of a penal statute, there must be an actual case. That is why, in Estrada versus Sandigan Bayan, famous Estrada, now your mayor in Manila, the Supreme Court, Mr. Estrada challenged the validity of the plunder law because, according to Mr. Estrada, it is not clear. It is not clear and doubtful what is the meaning of series and that of combination of transaction, series and combination of transactions. Yun ang challenge niya. This is broad and it is not specific. It cannot be applied to us because of due process. We cannot determine what really is that crime involved. The Supreme Court defined what is the meaning of combination as well as a series of transactions in the application of the plunder law. Alright. Okay. That is the question regarding the due process clause. Okay. Equal protection, due process, non-imposition, the bill of attainder, alright, ex post facto law. Regarding, let me just mention about bill of attainder. The case of People versus Ferrer is still one of the cases commonly cited when we discuss this issue of a bill of attainder. Because in that People versus Ferrer, the Communist Party was defined as an organization which is aimed or has the object to overthrow the government. And the Supreme Court clarified that this particularization of the Communist Party did not make the offenders or members thereof immediately liable and punishable under the law. That citation of the Communist Party is merely made for purposes of definition, definitional purposes, so that if ever any one of them will be prosecuted, there is a need for trial and hearing before they can be convicted. Okay? So, that is the bill of attainder, which makes a person liable even without any trial. Yan ang bill of attainder. Okay, due process, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Pati ako, nagbabasa. Although I have a, usually if you do not have this, I have a PowerPoint presentation about this. But anyway, it will. I did not bring that anymore because I know that you have a copy of this syllabus. We now proceed with the characteristics of a penal statute. And I already mentioned about this matter of generality. In addition to this generality, which I said involves equal protection, the most important thing that you should take into account is the exception. The exception. Isa lang ba exceptions? Exceptions to the generality principle. Sino ang hindi nakakaalam ng mga exceptions? One, generally accepted principles of international law. Yung worship, crimes committed in the worship in relation to the issue of territoriality. Kasi ito sa generality and territoriality is subject to that exception of generally accepted rules of international law. Embassy as well as worships are extension of the territories where a state should respect, and it is not within their jurisdiction. In like manner, as to the person, which is the subject of generality, people or persons representing a state in their official capacity. In other words, diplomatic purpose. Representing the sovereign state in their official capacity. Who are these people who come here in the Philippines representing their sovereign state? The President, the Vice President, the ambassador, or whoever is that person officially sent by another state for purposes of its sovereign function. These people class are accorded absolute immunity. Whatever crime, they cannot be charged or be apprehended. Absolute. Out of respect to the sovereign state, kasi they are here like a sovereign state in representation of that state. See? However, class, representatives or officials who are here by reason of immunity arising from membership from an international organization like the United Nations, WHO, ADB, etc., etc. The immunity granted to them is not absolute. It is not absolute. But it is relative or functional, if you want the word functional, in the sense that their immunity is limited to the crime which they commit in relation to their function. Even if there is a treaty, even if there is an immunity granted by the Vienna Convention, that is a functional immunity. Two cases so far are leading in this matter of functional immunity. You know this. Those old, not old naman, not too old. Minucier versus Escalzo and Liang versus Court of Appeals. Alright. In these two cases, still the Supreme Court mentioned about absolute immunity vis-a-vis functional immunity. In Minucier, the persons involved are members of the DEA. What is a DEA? Drug enforcement agents in connection with the UNODC, United Nations Organization Against Drugs Convention. This is under the United Nations, in which we are also a member. Okay? In this case, Escalzo conducted a buy-bust operation, which turned out negative. Minutier is a foreigner subject of the buy-bust operation. He filed a case against the members of the DEA headed by Mr. Scalzo in cooperation with our local agents, claiming that his right to privacy, violation of domicile, as well as damages were filed against Scalzo. In sustaining the immunity of Mr. Scalzo, the Supreme Court said, this is within the function of the DEA. And since it is within the function of the DEA, Mr. Scalzo is immune from criminal prosecution. Unlike in Liang, who committed oral defamation, Liang is an officer of the Asian Development Bank. And his commission of oral defamation has nothing to do with his function as a bank executive, bank advisor. Thus, the Supreme Court said he can be prosecuted and cannot invoke his immunity, which is limited in character. Laws of preferential application, bahala na kayo dyan. You know what is a law of preferential application? Sir, hindi pa. Hindi pa namin alam. Sige. It is just a law which is more superior than a penal statute. Kaya nga preferential eh. And of course, when we say preferential, we have, of course, the Constitution. Foremost is the Constitution. And what is that provision in the Constitution which provides a preferential application? Of course, you have the immunity of the President during his tenure from any crimes, prosecution for any crime that may be done after his tenure. Kaya nga si Macapagal, our previous president, Gloria Macapagal, is now facing so many charges because at the time she was still the president, she could not be charged. Now is the time. And of course, our legislatures, Madam Miriam Santiago, would freely and immune from talking anything he wanted to during the session because she knows she cannot be charged. You see? She is clothed with immunity under the law of preferential application. Let's go on. Masyado nang madami and territoriality, you know what is the territorial jurisdiction of our Philippine courts. And this is subject to extraterritorial jurisdiction or provision under Article 2. Perhaps you should know that we are an archipelago subject to the rules governed by the UNCLOS. What is UNCLOS? United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. UNCLOS. And under the UNCLOS, all archipelagic states, meaning states which has several or composed of several islands. Just like the Philippines, it is composed of thousands of islands, dependent on whether it is low tide or high tide. And there is a demarcation, a baseline which is connected with the outermost island. And that baseline is the basis to determine the 12-mile, 24-mile, and 200-mile limit, constituting the territorial waters, contiguous zone, and your economic zone. We have a jurisdiction over our economic zone. And under PD 1599, implementing the UNCLOS, we can prosecute people who will violate our right to exploit and preserve our natural resources within the economic zone. Hence, we can prosecute alien poaching in our economic zone. Kaya nga, lately, maraming mga Chinese, Vietnamese, Taiwanese who were apprehended in that area. Although, as you know, there is a question about this ownership of a certain areas in that economic zone. But that is not the problem of criminal law. That is the problem of political law. And as you know, some countries like China would even defy the provisions of the UNCLOS, claiming that, I don't know, they could not be bound by that UNCLOS because of their historical rights over that property. Again, forget about that issue. As far as we are concerned, in criminal law, we have a jurisdiction to protect and preserve our natural resources within that economic zone. So, PD 1599, as well as our fishery law, is effective in that area. Article 2, for purposes of extraterritorial jurisdiction. Bahala na kayo sa English rule at saka French rule. English rule at saka French rule. Sa akin, mamaya merienda ko, French fries. Anyway, the only demarcation or distinction between this French rule and the English rule is that the crime committed will disturb the peace and security of the state. As long as there is peace and security that is violated, then it could be tried in the Philippines. And you should remember still the nationality principle involving the ship as well as the airship or airplane. The nationality meaning the place where the ship or airship is registered will determine the nationality of that vehicle, whether ship or airship, nationality, and therefore it is that place where it is registered which has jurisdiction over that ship or airplane. And of course, in relation to the English rule, that ship or airship must be in a place where there is no state which has a territorial jurisdiction. In other words, a ship, for instance, must be in the high seas for us to apply this principle of nationality jurisdiction. If it is in the territory of another state, then we cannot apply this Article 2, Paragraph 1, involving nationality because it is within the territorial jurisdiction of another state. But there is a question that was asked whether a crime committed in another state arising from a ship registered in the Philippines. For instance, a ship owned by the registered in the Philippines is in Singapore, and the Singapore would not recognize its jurisdiction because it involves Filipinos. Wala kaming pakialam sa inyo. Magbakbakan kayo dyan. I did not disturb our state. We will not prosecute you. Alright. So walang case na na-file. They do not want to take jurisdiction. Under that circumstance class, the Philippines can take jurisdiction. Under the principle of protective theory, we have an obligation. The state has the obligation to protect its citizens, and therefore, they can take jurisdiction over those cases happen in a ship registered in the Philippines, which cannot be prosecuted by any other state. This is more of a international issue, but related to Article 2. And other exceptions or other extraterritorial provisions, just take note the other provisions of Article 2. Take special emphasis on crimes committed by public officers in the exercise of their functions. Crimes committed by public officers in the exercise of their functions. You will tell me, sir, madali yan. Basta crimes committed by public officers like malversation, anti-graft and corrupt practices committed by public officers outside of the Philippine territory may be tried in the Philippines. Precisely because it is the Philippine government which is the offended party. Therefore, we can try these people. But there is one issue lately regarding these public officers in the embassy who, instead of cuddling these people, sino ba yung mga taong OFW, they committed crimes against them. Against this OFW. Sila pa ang nagbugaw, sila pa ang nang-rape, sila pa ang what? Will this be within the jurisdiction of the Philippine courts? Of course, I would venture to say, apply the provisions of Article 2, which if it is in the exercise of their function, then that crime may be tried in the Philippine courts. See? And in this connection class, remember also the issue the principle regarding a continuing crime. What is a continuing crimes? It is a crime, the essential ingredients of which occurred in several territories. People versus Tulin is a good example. Kasi yung piracy is within the jurisdiction of the Philippine courts. So that whatever the accomplices who sold the goods subject of piracy under PD, ano yung ating piracy law, Anti-Piracy Act of 1974, PD 532. Yan. Persons who aids the pirates or benefit from the goods derived from piracy are not accessories. They are accomplices by specific provisions of PD 532. The acts of the accomplices were committed in Singapore, in a country, not in the Philippines, but the piracy is within the jurisdiction of the Philippine courts. The accomplices challenged the jurisdiction of the court because they said, we dispose this property in Singapore where the Philippine courts has no jurisdiction. The Supreme Court said, the court has a jurisdiction because these are accessory crimes or accessory offenders. When I say accessory, they are part of the collective liability of the offenders. The principal, the pirates are within our jurisdiction. Therefore, the disposition of those goods by people who commits a crime in relation thereto are also within the jurisdiction of the Philippine courts. This is similar to a case where, as I have said, a continuing crime where the essential ingredients of the crime occur. For instance, estafa. A certain OFW entrusted a money to be given to the wife of a certain OFW in the Philippines. Alright. The element of abuse of confidence happened in the Middle East. But the damage happened in the Philippines because the wife, the recipient of the money, did not receive the money. Alright. The element of damage occurred in the Philippines even if the abuse of confidence occurred outside the Philippine territory. It is still within the principle under Article 2. Similarly, in BP 22, may the court prosecute an offender who issued a foreign check? Alam niyo yan. The answer is yes. Why? Yan ang sagot. Because one of the essential ingredients of violation of BP 22 occurred in the Philippines. The issuance of the check on account or for value dito. Although the dishonor is done in the United States because it is a foreign bank. We have a jurisdiction. Yun ang reason in People versus the Villa versus Court of Appeals, where the Supreme Court said the Philippine court can prosecute an offender who issued a foreign check. See? And finally, under paragraph 5 of Article 2, crimes against the law of nations or against the law of piracy, it can be tried in any place where the ship passed by or has docked. And crimes against national security under Title 1. Note, crimes against national security. Rebellion class is not a crime against national security. Rebellion is a crime against, very good, public order under Title 3. Example of crimes against national security. We have treason, espionage, misprision of treason, etc., etc. And I would advise you at this time, do not say at this point in time, redundant. Simply say at this time or at this point, let me remind you. Ganyan. Ang ganda para paglagay nyo dun sa exam ninyo. Nako, yung reckless imprudence resulting to homicide, that is an ignorance of grammar. Nakakahiya. So, reckless imprudence resulting to, huwag nyo gagamitin. Resulting in, ang gamitin ninyo. You know, the examiner, even if you are correct, once they see the English grammatically wrong, masama na ang impression. Masama na ang impression. Yung isa, tama, sagot. The taking of the property, blah, 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 is a violation under Article 209. The crime committed is a thief. T-H-I-E-F. That is the crime committed. Eh, tama na lahat. Pagdating sa dulo conclusion, the crime is thief. Patay. Will you give this person a full credit? we will even doubt whether this person should become a lawyer, you see. Even if the crime that was committed is correctly a crime under Article 209. Theft. Ginawang thief. Naging tao yung object. Yung estate, dinagyan ng E before estate, naging estate. Oh, you see? Be very, very careful. Maybe you will say, slip of the finger. Pero, naulit. It was twice mentioned. Thief at saka estate. So, applying the principle of benefit of doubt, hindi nag-apply. Because apparently it was intentional, dolo in character. It was not a mere culpa. Alright, ano na ba? At this point, yeah. At this point, I could not direct you, I cannot sanction you. But I would tell you to do. Short of saying, dapat gawin na ninyo. Familiarize yourselves with the different titles. At least you should know the different titles. Kaya kanina here, one of the ladies said, Title 3, Crimes Against Public Order. Very good. Title 1, Title 2, Title 3, Title 4, hanggang Title 14. Memorize what are these titles and familiarize yourselves with the different crimes. For instance, Title 7, Crimes Committed by Public Officers. Anong mga yun? Alright, sir, you will tell me, malversation, bribery, ayan, infidelity in the custody of prisoners. Title 11, Crimes Against Chastity. What are those? Acts of lasciviousness. Rape, wala na rape, because it is now a crime against persons. And you would know that in crimes against chastity, regarding this matter of de officio cases, you see, applied in Title 11, not applied to the crime against persons. Marami yan. Memorize what are the crimes under Title 13, Crimes Against Honor. Ano ba mga ron? Hindi acts of lasciviousness, but libel. Alright. Incriminating against an innocent person. What is the advantage of knowing this? One, recidivism. If you don't know that a certain crime is defined under the same title, you wouldn't know for sure what is recidivism. You wouldn't know that yung palang unjust vexation is a crime against personal security. Personal security and liberty under Title 9, which includes the crimes of grave threat, grave coercion, kidnapping, and therefore kidnapping, unjust vexation, they are defined under the same title. There is recidivism, you see. Hindi naman i-memorya nyo lang. Just familiarize yourselves with the common crimes. Hindi naman siguro tatanungin sa inyo ng examiner na, what is the nature of the crime involving refusal to assume an elected public office. Is there such crime? Yes, under Article 2, 3, 4 of your revised penal code. A person who got elected will refuse to assume That is not the character of the Filipino people. Because they spend a lot of money. They commit fraud. They cheat just to get elected. Now that they got elected, they will refuse to assume position. No way. No way. That is not the kind of mentality that we have. Very common crimes lang. Common crimes lang. And in one bar exam, it was asked. Hindi naman, it may be in a problem or it may be objectively. It was asked. Distinguish violation of domicile from trespass to dwelling. Sir, madali yan. So, i-define ninyo ang trespass to dwelling, i-define mo rin ang violation of domicile. But supposing the examiner says, give at least 2 distinction. Di kailangan mo pa ng isa. Or perhaps, nakalimutan mo kung ano ba yung specific distinction. But you remember the title. Sasabihin mo na ngayon. Trespass to dwelling is a crime which is defined under Title 9, which is in the nature of a crime involving personal security and liberty. Unlike violation of domicile, it is a crime against the fundamental law of the land under Title 2 of the Revised Penal Code. Your examiner will tell you, this is perfect. 101%. Very good. Alright. We are done with the territoriality principle. Regarding prospectivity class, take note the principle of your statutory construction in relation to Article 22 of your Revised Penal Code. As a rule, prospectivity, but it may also retroact. And as I have mentioned a while ago regarding this matter of strict interpretation in relation to a penal statute, remember that case of Lacson versus Court of Appeals, Lacson, whatever is that case, Lacson, regarding the time bar rule. Tandaan nyo yung time bar rule? Which Mr. Lacson argued that it should be applied retroactively because it is beneficial to him. This case originated from the Puratong Baleleng case, which for several times na-dismiss. And it was dismissed in the regional trial court. And it was refiled. Under your time bar rule, refiling cannot be done within a period of 1 year or 2 years, as the case may be, dependent upon the penalty prescribed for the crime, whether it is more than 6 years or less than 6 years. At the time your revised penal code came in, revised rules of criminal procedure became effective, almost 2 years had gone past. Almost 2 years na from the time there was a dismissal of the case. So, sabi ni Lacson, nung i-file ang case, sabi niya, prescribed na kasi nawala na, it was filed after more than 2 years. Applying the retroactivity. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court, one of the reasons denying that petition, the Supreme Court said, that is a criminal procedure. It is a procedural law and it is not a penal statute where the right of the accused can be invoked, where that retroactivity can be invoked as a matter of right. sabi ng Supreme Court, this is a procedural law which will not retroact as a matter of right, more so that it will prejudice the government. Kasi kung magre-retroact na wala na yung right of the government to refile the case, which under the law is 2 years. In other words, that 2 years should be computed from 2001 until 2002. Dapat within that period pwedeng i-refile ng government. Ang sabi ni Lacson, porque na-dismiss ang kaso 1998. 2000 effective. Sabi niya mag-retroact, wala na, hindi na pwede. No, sabi ng Supreme Court, that cannot be done. This is a procedural law and not a substantive penal statute. Alright. Isa pa, prospectivity. While it is a matter of right, marami tayo dyan. I mentioned a while ago regarding this pendente lite. At the time the accused was meted with suspension, the crime committed was before the enactment of the law. In other words, when he committed the crime, wala pang pendente lite. Wala pang pendente lite. Now that he was charged, meron ng pendente lite. So sabi ni accused, this cannot be done because this is a penal statute. Dapat prospective lang. Prospective. It will not be applied to him because he committed the crime before the enactment of that pendente lite. Ano sabi ng Supreme Court? No, this is not a penal statute. That should apply strictly prospective in character and liberally if it will retroact for the benefit of the accused. In other words, that pendente lite retroacted and did not violate Article 22 of the revised penal because it is not a penal statute. Meron pa isang magandang kaso. Yung extradition. The crime has already been committed, nagkaroon na extradition. Ex post facto law, which was invoked. Bakit magre-retro? I have already committed the crime. I cannot be extradited. That extradition law should apply to those crimes committed subsequent to the enactment of the extradition law. That is true if that extradition law is a substantive penal statute. But that is not a substantive penal statute. And therefore, it may retroact to include crimes already committed. Sabi ng Supreme Court. Okay? Substantive, prospective characteristic of a penal statute. What are the sources of a penal law? Basically, class, there are only two sources. What are these? Revised penal codes and special laws. What are the crimes penalized? Mala finse. Special laws, mala prohibita. Tama. Tama. Wrong. That is not precise. Because even if the law violated is the RPC, it is not always a mala and se, but may also involve prohibita. Mala prohibita. In the same way that special laws quits are generally mala prohibita may also involve mala in se. Why the need to distinguish? Why the need to clarify? Why the need to determine whether it's mala in se or mala prohibita? Bakit? Sir, because of the element of intent, because of the element of malice, and the defense of good faith. Very good. That is correct. That is correct. Intent as well as good faith. If it is mala in se, good faith pwede, lack of intent, lack of mens rea. Meron din siya nagpayabang, lack of mens will not constitute mala in se. Nakalimutan, rea. Naman kayo masyadong magyabang kung hindi kayo sigurado. Meron pa isa, Article 14 defines a justifying circumstance of self-defense. Article 11 ang self-defense, hindi Article 14. Ang Article 14 ay aggravating circumstances. In short, the moral of the story is, do not cite a provision if you are not 100% sure. Huwag na kayong magyabang at lalo kayong madidisgrasya sa pagyayabang ninyo. Useless naman na i-cite ninyo ang article kung di kayo sigurado eh. Sabihin nyo na lang, under the revised penal code, kung di kayo sigurado. Kung hindi kayo sigurado na wala dyan sa revised penal code, under the law, sabihin na lang ninyo. Huwag nyo nang sabihin pa yung article. Okay? Pagwag be careful. Alright. There are crimes in the revised penal code which are mala in se, and therefore good faith may be raised as a defense because absence of criminal intent. But there are also crimes which are mala prohibita, in which case good faith is not a defense because what is important in mala prohibita is that the accused perpetrated the commission of the act. It is not the crime which is committed, but it is the act itself which was perpetrated. When we say perpetration or intent to perpetrate, means only that the act was done freely and voluntarily. Meaning, there was an intelligence on the part of the accused to perform the act. That is all. You brought a gun to protect yourself. Your intention is by reason of necessity, which is justified. Are you justified, or can you be exonerated for illegal possession? The answer is no, because regardless of your intent, you may be held liable because you have the intent to perpetrate the act. You issued the check on account or for value. You issue the check on account for value with the intention that it should only serve as a memorandum check, as an evidence of indebtedness. Therefore, I should not be held liable. I am in good faith in issuing the check. Pwede? No, sir. Because the mere act of issuance, knowingly issuing a check, is a crime, regardless of the purpose or intention. You know what is the meaning of intent? It is the purpose of the accused. Thus, if it is a special law, determine if it is a mala prohibita or mala in se. As a rule, they are mala prohibita where good faith is not a defense. But If that special law is mala in se, then good faith will come in as a valid defense. Sir, give us an example of a special law which is mala in se in character. All right. Plunder is a special law. But that is not mala prohibita. Violence against women and children is not a mala prohibita. Abuse, child abuse, there must be an intent to abuse. If it was done accidentally or for some reasons not intentional in character, that abuse will not constitute a violation of 7610. Dagdag bawas under your election law. Ano yung dagdag bawas? Yung election law. Manipulating the election result. If that error in the computation was done in good faith, in other words, it was not intentional, it was an honest mistake, may that person be charged under the election law for manipulation? No, sir. Why? Because that is a mala in se. It is a special law. While it is a special law, it is a mala in se. Therefore, good faith can be invoked as a defense. Sir, what is the relationship between the revised penal code and the special law? Article 10. Sir, layo na natin wala pa tayong 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Talagang ganyan ang review. We can go up until Article 365. Culpa. Because we are already doing a review. In fact, we can even relate this criminal law with other provisions or other laws, civil, constitution, etc., etc. What is Article 10? As a rule, your revised penal code is suppletory to the provisions of special law. That is the rule. Basahin yung Article 10, nakakalito because it starts with a proposition that it is not suppletory. Hindi ba? Tingnan first sentence. Provisions of the revised crimes in which are in the future punishable. The revised penal code is not suppletory. But the second sentence provides that it is suppletory. Hindi ba? Alright. In other words, class, in all cases, as a rule, except when the law, the special law provides otherwise, that is self-explanatory, or it is inconsistent or impossible to apply. Following the principle of generalia specialibus non derogant. A general statute would not derogate a special law. Or you want the more common statutory construction that in case of conflict between a special law and a general law, it is the special law which should prevail. In relation to prospectivity, in relation to interpretation of a penal statute, include Article 10. Now, when is it inconsistent or when is it inapplicable? More often than not, this is applied in terms of penalties. The penalties under your special laws has a specific characteristic, which is conflicting with that of the revised penal code. For instance, yung penalty na 10 to 15 years, penalty na 5 to 10 years, penalty na 1 year, etc., is inconsistent with the application of the penalties under your revised penal code involving reclusion temporal, arresto mayor, etc., etc. Walang divisibility, walang penalty next lower in degree, ang life imprisonment. Unlike reclusion perpetua, merong penalty next lower in degree. The rules regarding the penalties involving reclusion perpetua cannot be applied to life imprisonment because they are not the same. And their nature is in conflict with the rules found under the revised penal code. A minor committing a crime, the penalty prescribed, kita nyo is life imprisonment, cannot be benefited by the provisions of Article 68, 1 degree lower. Unless the law provides otherwise, like your Section 98 of 9165, ano sabi ron? In case of a minor, the penalty of life imprisonment to death shall be reclusion perpetua to death. Yun ang sabi ng Dangerous Drugs Act. Ano ibig sabihin nun? If it is a minor who is involved violating 9165, the penalty of which is life imprisonment to death, the court will impose reclusion perpetua to death so that they can avail of the privilege mitigating circumstance. Apparently, class, if the special law impose or prescribe a penalty the same as that of the revised penal code, then Article 10 is applicable. So, for instance, if a certain special law provides a penalty of reclusion temporal, prison correctional, that is subject to divisibility, mitigating, aggravating, or even 1 degree lower, applying the revised penal code by analogy or supplementary application, unless it is provided otherwise. Subsidiary penalty, pwede? The answer is yes, because it is not inconsistent with the provisions of the special law. So that in violations involving BP 22 as well as libel under Article 354 and 55, which under the Supreme Court Circular, ano ang penalty ngayon ng BP 22 tsaka libel? Ano penalty? Wala naman, nandito sa handout ninyo, si circular, bla 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 bla, tignan ninyo, nasan na yung circular na yung crime against bouncing check. Ayan, sa bouncing check. Clarification of administrative circular increasing the penalty of administrative BP 22. Ayan. 13-2001. And then in crimes against honor, page 6, number 13, include administrative circular 2008, guidelines in the observance of a rule of preference in the imposition of penalties in libel cases, preference of imposition of a fine, page 6, number 13. What is the importance of subsidiary penalty? In one old case, old case, The accused was charged with a violation of a special law. The court imposed, magkakaintindihan na tayo, impose a fine with subsidiary penalty in case of insolvency. The accused challenged the validity of that penalty of subsidiary penalty, arguing that he could not be required to serve a subsidiary penalty because there is nothing under the special law that requires him to serve a subsidiary penalty. The Supreme Court said no, because by supplementary application of the revised penal code pursuant to Article 10, that subsidiary penalty may be required for a violation of a special law, the penalty of which involves a fine. And therefore, following that ruling in relation to libel and BP 22, as provided under the circular, these people or violators can be subjected to a subsidiary penalty under Article 39. Okay? Article 10 and Article 39. Alright, let us take a 15 minutes break.